$2,394. That's how much it cost me to eBay the latest Leitzphone, plus its optional photography kit. And if you know Leica, you know that's the price to pay for the privilege of bearing one of the most coveted camera brands in history, albeit somewhat sacrilegiously, if you hang out in certain stuffy subreddits. I've spent the past 2 weeks trying to condense my thoughts about this thing into something coherent. From one viewpoint, it's an impostor, a cynical money grab that wasn't even built by Leica, can't live up to the quality, and won't hold the value of a real camera. But while I understand that reflexive cynicism, I don't share it. Because in my view, this is everything a special edition smartphone should be. It's respectful to the heritage of the brand it's building upon, it brings features and photos no other phone can produce, and it's based on a flagship foundation with very few compromises. I'm MrMobile, and I love this thing. Let me tell you why. If you'll forgive the well-worn reviewer cliché, this Leica phone is what the first one should have been. I covered the inaugural Leitzphone back in 2021, and while I had a lot of fun with its camera over that year's drizzly Christmas break, I can't say the same for the rest of the experience, which was based on the Aquos R6 from Sharp Corporation. For this fourth generation, Leica expanded its existing partnership with Chinese colossus Xiaomi to reimagine that company's excellent 17 Ultra as the new Leitzphone. And this is something much more worthy of that illustrious name. We're not just talking about a black repaint of the fiberglass back. In addition to the obligatory Leica meatball, the aluminum frame has gotten carved-in co-branding, as well as some hefty knurling that adds both grip and visual interest. Above that, a pair of round volume buttons remind me of the iPhone 4, which I'm choosing to believe is a deliberate tip of the cap to 2010-era Steve Jobs.
Its closest kin is like a beautiful old Leica camera.
Okay, the buttons aren't exclusive to the Leica variant, but this is a rotating active bezel mounted on 20 ball bearings and tied into the phone's haptic engine, which adds some delicious analog tactility to zooming and other camera features we'll explore shortly. That ring is sealed well enough to preserve the phone's IP68 dust and water resistance rating, and if you're worried about scratching the Gorilla Glass camera cover, the case in the box preserves my favorite bonus from the first Leitzphone, an aluminum lens cap. I just wish it could be used with the naked phone, since I hate covering up this industrial design with a case. All right. And in the same vein, it's a real shame that you need to buy the Pro Photography Kit to get a dedicated shutter button. But honestly, this kit brings so much added value that I'd recommend it to anyone considering this phone anyway. Now, if you're a camera phone connoisseur of a certain vintage, you may recall a similar accessory offered for the groundbreaking Nokia Lumia 1020. And this kit is exactly what you'd expect from 13 years of iteration on a great idea. It's a combination case and grip, with a choice of 2 shutter button colors and an option either to preserve the spinning bezel or add a 67mm filter to the lens. Attaching the included lanyard is incredibly annoying, but the first time you're dangling over a long drop or a deep body of water with your expensive phone, you'll be glad you stuck with it. I never thought I'd become a lanyard lad, but here we are. The grip plugs into the phone via USB, which activates that 2-stage shutter button and its neighboring controls. A camcorder key that'll instantly roll video, a spring-loaded zoom lever, and a command dial that's set to exposure by default. I really love how much thought has gone into this. For example, when you call up the Leica styles, the command dial lets you scroll through them to preview those different looks on the fly. And you can reassign almost all these controls to fit your own photographic preferences. And if all that wasn't enough, there's also a 2,000 mAh battery hidden away in the grip. So when the phone runs low on juice, it'll start pulling power from the grip to give you more time in the field. Now, as with the lens cap, I do wish I could use the grip with the naked phone, because this case just deletes so much of that Leica character. Also, the bezel on the filter frame starts showing wear almost immediately. Wish they'd gone with a stronger metal here. And the zoom toggle is handy, but sluggish enough to make smooth pushes and pulls kind of tough. Props to my buddy Hayato for pointing that out. But even after just a week, I got so accustomed to the ergonomics and the added features of this kit that I really didn't like shooting without it. My default move became to keep the grip in one pocket and the phone in the other, and join them every time I wanted to take a photo, because it was that much more comfortable. I want to talk more about the phone half of Leitzphone, but I'm too eager to show off the shots that I got out of this camera. So let's give that ring a quick double twist and dive into some samples. From the Chinese Scholars Garden of Staten Island to the stunning sunsets and strange sights of San Francisco. I don't know what could possibly make a San Francisco evening. Wait, what? Babe, my people have come for me. Unlike the single lens offerings of prior models, this Leitzphone stuffs 3 cameras into its distinctive disc. A 50-megapixel primary with a 23mm equivalent lens, a 14mm ultra-wide at the same resolution, and a 200-megapixel variable telephoto shooter that offers 75 to 100mm equivalents, thanks to an optical assembly that actually moves within the phone. Now, as I've said before, while I'm a YouTuber by profession and a somewhat competent photographer sometimes, I'm not a camera expert. So as I was preparing this review, I checked my experiences against those of actual experts. I will link the petapixel review in the description. That's a very good piece for anybody considering this phone from a more technical, optical perspective, and also a video from Tyler Stallman. It was that video that convinced me to keep the phone in Leica Authentic mode instead of the more Instagram-cooked Vibrant. And I called on some real-world contacts as well. It was a discussion with friend and photographer David Amell, followed by a visit to the Leica store and gallery in the Meatpacking District in New York City, that taught me the significance of the M3 and M9 cameras. Those are important because those are emulated on the phone, thanks to a rebuilt imaging pipeline trained on photos from those Leica cameras. Now, how well does the phone actually reproduce the so-called classic silver halide grain structure of the monopan film? I have no idea. What I care more about is being able to snap a photo that carries a special character. A picture that doesn't look like every other flat iPhone shot or sharp pixel photo out there, but which also isn't just cooked to death by random filters. I mean, you can overdo it on this phone. I definitely went a little hard with Eternal. But once you rein in those 2012-era Instagram impulses, it becomes kind of hard to take a bad shot with this phone. A part of that is down to the tools you're given by the hardware. Like I said, that photo kit makes this the most comfortable phone to shoot on by a long shot. They even included a little thumb rest built in. And being able to use the ring for everything from zoom to focus to exposure is just enormously fun. Even the flash is notable, with dual eyeball-searing LEDs that easily overcome backlighting without destroying the color of the shot. And would I like a proper xenon flash? Yeah, absolutely. And while we're talking shortcomings, there are the typical compromises you find on any phone, like motion blur in low light and ultra-wide output that suffers in the same. In video mode, zoom is smooth, but the transitions between cameras are very apparent. And things get pretty muddy much past 8x. We're doing Chonkers the Sea Lion pretty dirty here. So no, we're not talking iPhone equivalent video. But honestly, this camcorder did much better than I expected. And better than many other Androids, even in challenging settings. When it comes to camera phones, the question I'm always most interested in is this: does it make me want to rise to its level? In other words, does the hardware inspire me to try harder so I can fulfill its potential? I used to say that about Sony, and more recently I've felt that when using Oppo's Hasselblad-branded phones. But not since those Nokia days of 2013 have I felt it as keenly as I do with the Leica phone. I could resell this thing as soon as this video is done, and given my guaranteed return to the world of foldables, I probably should. But I don't think I will, because I just don't want to give this camera up. The software, though, has a few stumbles that make letting go a bit easier. Aesthetically, this rendition of Android 16 is delightful. Everything's done up in mostly monochrome, white text and iconography on a sea of black, rendered wonderfully by a nearly 7-inch OLED that's also bright enough to still be seen in the sun. The widgets from older Leitzphones are back too. Every time you unlock the phone, you're given the opportunity to be inspired by the work of others, showcased on LFI magazine, or your own photos on the Through My Lens widget. There's a dedicated tile that counts down the time to golden hour every day, and the always-on display is rendered in a derivative of Leica's trademark LG 1050 typeface. I really admire this devotion to design, but sadly, it's only skin deep. The icon pack is extremely limited, so third-party apps that Xiaomi didn't redesign stick out like a sore thumb. And there's no way to force system-level theming like there is on, say, a Google Pixel. The widgets are very buggy. Notice how the actual weather is reported in Fahrenheit, while the feels like is locked to Celsius, and it's impossible to modify any settings in the golden hour widget for some reason. If you've snoozed an alarm, tapping into the clock app doesn't show which alarm is still snoozed. Even on the global model, some settings for that always-on display are in Chinese. And the AOD itself? Well, I feel like we've completely lost the plot here. It shows notification icons, but it makes them comically tiny, so it's impossible to see what kind of a notification it is if you're more than a foot away. If you are running a timer and you want to keep an eye on it from the always-on display, nope, can't do that. You've got to keep the screen on and rely on Xiaomi's imitation dynamic island. I just feel like these manufacturers aren't asking the question of what do we want to do with an always-on display and how can we accomplish it? It's like, just why even bother at this point? Ordinarily, I'd try to fix some of these issues with a custom launcher, but I don't want to, because so much of this design is great. It just doesn't go far enough, and apparently didn't go through enough quality control. Now, frankly, that's not a surprise to me, coming from Xiaomi, whose threshold for software success has always been, make it look like an iPhone. But if I'm Leica, this storied, aspirational brand, I'd be a little bit embarrassed about how much has slipped through the cracks here. But if you can ignore or customize your way around those stumbles, the Leica Phone has the hardware to support whatever Android will let you do. A 6,000 mAh battery delivers all-day endurance, even without the camera grip, and even taking into account my habitual mobile hotspot usage to stay connected on the road and the river. The top-shelf Snapdragon Silicon is backed up by 16 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of onboard storage. And there's fast charging in both wired and wireless modes. No magnets built in, but both of the cases I've shown off in this video bring their own. Phone calls, speaker performance, it's all as solid as you have a right to expect from a flagship smartphone in 2026. And Xiaomi promises software support through 2032. So conceivably, you could still be carrying one of these aboard Sequest. At the beginning, I was tempted to write this phone off as something only Leica superfans might buy. But I feel like most of them have iPhones, so it's easier for me to imagine them buying the Lux app and maybe a MagSafe grip to go with it. This product, I think, is more likely to resonate with hardcore phone fans who want unique capabilities, but don't want to settle for a mainstream or unfamiliar brand to get them. This is not a dunk on Xiaomi. I've always had a lot of respect for its hardware. But in North America, that name really doesn't carry any weight. It isn't aspirational at all. Leica is another story. Blending that brand with outstanding hardware, thoughtful features, and beautiful design has created one of the few co-branded products that I think actually deserves to exist. It would benefit from more polish, and of course it won't hold its value nearly as well as the cameras bearing the same name. But if you want a uniquely capable mobile photo experience, in a device you're unlikely to see in anyone else's hand, that relies on something other than AI to stand out, this Leitzphone is certainly worth saving up for. Check out my Oppo Find N6 review if you'd like to see another aspirational camera experience crammed into a foldable, and please subscribe so you don't miss the next review. This video was produced following 2 weeks with a global Leitzphone purchased by MrMobile. As always, neither Xiaomi nor Leica nor any other manufacturer had editorial input into this content, and no compensation was provided for same. A special thanks to Sire at the Leica store and gallery in New York City for giving us such a warm welcome. Swing by if you're in the city. It's an amazing experience. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones on the socials, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.